Creatures are the bread and butter of any game of Magic. And with each creature type comes a plethora of personality, mechanics, and of course, flavour. As of Theros Beyond Death, there are confirmed 259 different creature types. But can some of these creature types be consolidated for tribal support, or is diversity best for creative deck building? Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast. We talk about all things Magic flavour, design, and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
Hello, it's Nathan Katz.
And we're here today to talk about creature types.
Yes.
Yeah, there's been a bit of a narrative built up over the past however many episodes where I either hate creature types because I think they get in the way of my fun, or I'm in favour of creature types because of the flavour that they bring. But I seem to have quite loose criteria for what I consider to be like good creature typing and bad creature typing. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I'd say it's fair. I like the ongoing joke of the Nagas has been.
Yeah, so the big thing is right. So
enjoyed.
the reason that we're doing this episode and the reason it is called the Great Snake Debate is because Nagas, as in snake folk, for me, have become kind of like the poster child for erroneous creature typing.
Kind of everything that's wrong with the
Like, I like tribal
designation.
decks, like whether it's in EDH or whether it's in any format, because especially in things like Limited, if you go into a tribal set, something like Ixalan or something like that, where tribal support matters, they're fun decks because they're full of flavour. You get to play cool cards and have like really strong synergies.
Yeah, Leonin was a good set for having tribal synergies.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
The limited format was nice.
Yeah. They did a whole batch of commander precons based around tribal synergies.
Oh, the eminence,
The eminence ability.
That
that mechanic aside, like that gave people, commanders, and that gave people options. And there was a load of cards printed for that, things like Herald's Horn and stuff.
Yeah.
Which really cared about tribal stuff. And if you sit down, no matter what EDH pod you sit at, there is always going to be someone who really likes tribal decks, whether or not they're playing them at the time or not, because they don't tend to be the most strong. But there is always someone that goes, I really love my cat deck.
Or angel deck.
Or my angel deck, or whatever it is. One of the guys at our shop plays a cleric tribal deck. That's really, really good.
I think with Ailey at the top.
I think he was actually playing what's the black-white creature that it goes in a lot of Athreos builds? It's not a legendary. It's
High Priest of Penance?
No. Edgewalker.
Edgewalker. Oh,
Yeah. He plays Edgewalker as the commander.
Oh, that's
if we list. Well, yeah, I mean, no, but we all table discuss it because we all sat down and we went,
Just play Ailey, you cowards.
Is that a
Play
cleric
Ailey.
tribal? And he was like, yeah. I was like, what commander? He went, well, I've got loads of different ones that could fit it, but the one that I'm interested to see how it would work is Edgewalker. And we went, all right, man, stick Edgewalker in the command zone. And it was a really fun deck.
But you could do a pauper EDH deck with Edgewalkers.
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, the point is that there's always someone who loves their quirky tribal deck. For me personally, I've never actually built a tribal deck, but I'm longing, in this year of Commander, they have to print a Werewolf Commander that's worth its salt. They just have to do it.
What happens if they don't?
Well, then I'm stuck with Ulrich of the Crawling Horde like every other Werewolf player, and I'll have to like it. Or I'll give up EDH and I'll start playing Oathbreaker with Arlen Cord instead.
Oh, what, Moon Mist? Or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
I mean, you've got a Krenko Goblins tribal.
I also have a Marwyn Elf tribal.
You have a Marwyn Elf Bull, exactly. So it's like everyone loves tribal decks, and some of the commander cards, as I say, are really, really strong. So there we are. So tribal is definitely a thing that matters in Commander, and people love creatures. Whether you're a spell slinger or if you like prefer spells or if you prefer creature types, there's still a creature that resonates with you as a player. And I think that's true across all formats. I think that's true across all Magic. Everyone has a favourite creature type.
Yeah, well, I think most people's favourite cards tend to... I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, if a commander plays, it's easier to have characters that you like more because that's kind of how the format works.
Sure.
I'm trying to think, like, if someone's favourite card's probably Lightning Bolt, but there probably is someone out there who goes, I am the Lightning.
Well, yeah, sure. But then,
I bring the thunder.
Then that person's probably a red player who probably really likes goblins or elementals or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably likes Spark Elementals.
Yeah, and for people who might not know what the whole debate is between Nagas and snakes, is that when it comes to animal folk in Magic the Gathering, or, humanoids that have animal traits or animal features, or anthropomorphic characters,
races, yeah.
The snake folk from Kamigawa, which were the Orochi tribe, were just formatted as a creature type to be snake.
Yeah.
Then Khans of Tarkir rolls around. We know they're going to have a snake tribe again. They're going to have anthropomorphic snake people. And the creature typing was changed to Naga, which everyone was like, ooh, okay, I suppose that kind of fits with something of the flavour. Then Amonkhet rolls around, and they do it again.
With it.
They stick with it. This is on top of them in every core set and in every new product. Things like Modern Horizons, for example, that had loads of snakes.
Yeah.
And loads of really relevant snakes.
Pretty sure that there's actual snakes in No, it's Freak is chosen, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
in Theros.
Yeah, but then, there we go. Like, the sets surrounding all these different Naga tribes have snakes in them. And it's just infuriating.
And did they go back and errata all of the Orochi to be Nagas?
No.
No.
So you can't build a tribal snake deck with all the best snakes in Magic, no matter how you swing it. You can still build decks which have snake synergies because there are enough commanders that thankfully you can do that in. But if you wanted to just do a balls to the wall snake folk deck, you have to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
And someone like Kaseto, which is a great snake tribal commander,
won't work with
you can't have with the Nagas.
Yeah, so the Nagas don't really have any. And I mean, I guess. So I mean, a lot of cards tend to be. If you look back at things like, say, dinosaurs more recently, they did take a lot of the cards that were obviously dinosaurs sort of around before the dinosaur creature type, and they errated them to do so. But the tricky thing when it comes to tribal is. Some tribes will naturally have like natural synergy with between the cards anyway. Say with elves, they usually make a lot of mana and have a lot to do with the mana. They'll have like mana sinks and things like that. The problem is with some of these tribes is that they probably won't get individual. There won't be a lot of Naga support. Realistic, there's not enough Nagas to justify it.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Because there's already pre-existing snake support, and those Nagas don't fit into that, it kind of leaves them high and dry a little bit.
Yeah.
And I understand where diversity is kind of key in keeping the game fresh. And adding scope and range to it. And maybe, 20 years down the line, everyone will be chatting about their Naga decks with their crazy Naga support.
Yeah, sure. Like, anything can change.
But realistically, why do you need to dilute an already, like, a very fresh... It's a
there are 249 creature types.
There's a little pool of snakes you can already kind of put more effort into. And, why not?
And I think the thing that's really infuriating, for me anyway, and this entire episode is completely subjective. There are going to be people that are listening to this that disagree with almost every point of the podcast episode from here on in, because that's this is a very subjective thing. There's no objective truth to this way of thinking. But it seems to be that when they assign creature types to things, they either go down the path of flavor for the set, which is obviously great, wonderful, or they go down the path of mechanics for Magic, like going back for like Eternal formats. And it just seems like in something that was so clearly going to be something that they went, cool, they're bringing back Snake Folk, we're going to have Snake Tribal again. They went down the flavour route, which should be something we jump up and down for joy about, but was, I think, for me, completely the wrong call. And they did it twice.
Yeah, and
they made that call twice.
Yeah, and then the mechanical support suffers for it.
Sure.
Like, so the thing is, you kind of want, because you don't want, again, the cross argument against the diversity thing is you kind of want all your cards to work better together, to have more automatic synergy. You don't want it to become too, like, parasitic and too insular. You don't want it just to be that you can either be this creature type or this creature. You don't want there to only be like 20 creature types, because obviously then whenever you make, like, say, a new zombie card or a new goblin card, you've got to be careful that it doesn't break all the other goblins and zombies in half.
Sure.
But at the same time, if you've already got something that's established, why not further an established trope rather than dilute it further?
Sure. There are 249 creature types, Nathan.
Yes.
You have purported yourself to be something of an expert on magic flavour.
Yes.
Yes. Sure. So now it's time for a pop quiz. I'm going to ask you 3 different questions, Nathan, and you're going to give me an answer to each of these 3 different questions. They're multiple choice, and each one of them has a different parameter as to what the right answer is, and I will give you... There are essentially 3 variations on the same question.
Okay.
But this is basically designed... When I was looking through researching this episode, I came across so many different creature types that I thought, like, some of them... Talking about redundant creature types, some of them are just so off the wall weird, or they're one-ofs, or they only pertain to like a certain like little nugget of magic,
super niche,
that either you can kind of go, oh, that's really flavorful and I love it, or that's a waste of printing it.
Yeah,
why did you do that?
You've got Beast that can cover anything.
Exactly.
Why did you go for an individual thing?
This is your pop quiz. Okay. 3 questions. Here we go. First question: which of these is a creature type? Is it A, Colossus, B, Dreadnought, or C, White? Which of these is a creature type?
I'm pretty sure it's Dreadnought from Phyrexian Dreadnought.
Yeah, and you are correct.
Yeah.
Yes, Phyrexian Dreadnought is the card which is the only card in Magic the Gathering which has the subtype Dreadnought. Which is crazy, because that seems like a really magic-y word as well.
Yeah, like, so the reason I know that is because one of the first broken interactions I saw was the Stifle Dreadnought combo.
Yeah.
Where you go if you have Lotus Petal, whatever, you go turn 1 Island Lotus Petal, play the Phyrexian Dreadnought, stifle the sacrifice permanents up to 12 power, and you just get a 1 mana 12/12 on turn 1.
Cool.
So yeah, but I'm surprised they haven't changed it to Constructs or something else like that.
Well,
I'm surprised that's not been errated, yeah.
Sure, but I think the fact that it is a one-off kind of gives it its own, like, niche-y value.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of maybe why they kept it as well, so like it gives it a bit more resonance.
Absolutely. All right, question 2. Which of these is not a creature type?
Okay.
Is it A, shellfish? Is it B, Feldergriff? Or is it C, bringer? Is it A, shellfish?
It's A.
You're not going to let... So that you got to let me read them out again.
You want to go again? Yeah, right, so go ahead.
Well, no, you're right. It's shellfish.
Yeah,
it's shellfish, yeah.
There are crabs and trilobites.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's Feldergriff because Feldergriff.
Well, okay, so yeah, right. So yeah, shellfish is the correct answer for the only one not being a creature type.
Yeah.
Feldergriff, so everyone knows the commander Feldergriff.
Yeah, there's another one as well. Hungry Feldergriff.
There is a couple of Feldergriffs. I didn't know that. I thought Feldergriff was the name of the hippo.
Oh, I see.
I thought Feldergriff was a hippo.
Yeah, well, I think the idea is that it's like
He makes hippos.
Imagine like if you're the only unicorn on a plane. Does that make you legendary on that plane? Yes. Are you legendary?
But then why are you called unicorn?
Well, no, because maybe it's known as like questing
As
beast.
the unicorn.
Like questing beast. Why isn't it not the questing beast?
I mean, well, that's a different podcast for a different time.
why,
It should be the questing beast.
I say so.
Questing beast isn't a name.
Let's contact Wizard. Say it should be the Feldergriff.
Cool. Where are the bringers from? Do you know where the bringers are
Yeah,
from?
they were Mirrodin.
Mirrodin. They're a cycle of 5.
I played Bringer of the Red Dawn.
Yeah, I tried to make these questions. You're really worried. I told you there was going to be a pop quiz. I've tried to make these questions that you could feasibly answer by giving you, like, creature types that you might be aware of. I'm not trying to pull it completely out the arse out of nowhere.
Again, I was lucky that when I made my first 100 every colour of Magic stack of cards deck, because every kid does that when they're really crap in the early 2000s. I played Composite Golem into Bringer.
Feldergriff and Bringer.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, question 3.
Sure. We'll make it 3 for 3.
Yeah, I think you'll do it. Which of these are creature types, sir? So what I mean by this is there are 3 options, like the other 2 questions.
But some of them are, and some of them
could
aren't.
be one,
Could be 2,
could be 2, could be 3, could be all, could be none.
Okay.
So you've got to give me the correct answer.
Okay.
There's no in betweens. I'm not going to give you points for half getting it.
I know. I mean, I'm already over 50% on these. I don't care. I'm already winning.
You're a smug bastard, and I regret doing this. Which of these are creature type brackets? A, Lamassu. B, I, as in EYE.
Yeah.
C, Org. I'm going to read it out again for the audience. Don't jump in.
Okay.
Take your time.
Okay.
A, Lamassu. B, I. Or C, Org. The spelling of Org is O-R-G-G.
Yeah, because that is. I is, and Lamassu is also.
Oh, he's got it, ladies and gentlemen!
I can't remember which card the Lamassu is, but I know the I card. There are 2 of them. I think there were 2 eyes.
There are 2 eyes.
Great Eye of Urborg, I think, is one of them. I remember the artwork, and then there's one that I think was from Plane of Chaos.
There are multiple eye cards.
Yeah, and then I know that Org is Org because it's I played again when I first found Magic. You've got very unfortunate with the cards choices. My first stack of cards that I found, it was a starter 1995 bunch of cards.
Yeah.
One of the cards is Trained Org. So there are a few.
Do you know what Orgs are?
Yeah, they were like genetically. I know that they've got 4 arms, and they were supposed to be like the most monstrous.
They're a cross between orcs and goblins.
Yeah, so basically they're Uruk-hai.
No, because Uruk-hai are in Lord of the Rings are a cross between goblins and elves.
No. Goblins are a cross between orcs and goblins. Goblins are a cross between orcs and elves.
Oh, no, you're right, yeah.
And then Uruk-hai are when they crossbreed their own crossbreed to make the Uber breed.
Sure. No, yeah, you're right, you're right. But yeah, orcs, unbelievable. In a magic world where we have orcs and goblins and ogres
We've got orgs
and
as well.
kobolds and all this kind of stuff. We've got orcs.
Yeah, I know.
Stupid. Lamassu.
Yeah,
I have no idea what a Lamassu is.
I can't remember which card the Lamassu is actually off the top of my head. You've stumped me there.
Yeah.
I just know for sure it is because
Yeah.
I know it rings a bell.
Well, you are 3 for 3, but this really highlights just how many, so there are things, when we talk about creature types, a lot of the time we talk about that there are classes as well as races. So the reason I dropped white in as a potential answer, and colossus as well, is because they do sound like things that could be creature types. And you do get creature cards which have them in the name.
Yeah, Colossus, I think, mainly comes down to that they would have already had chances to do that in Theros, and they didn't.
All over
they
the
did
place,
constructs instead. And then whites, because they already do spirits and shades and wraiths.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just what is the bloody difference between half of those anyway?
Well, exactly.
Aren't all wraith spirits?
But then that's why I thought I was surprised that they
horrors,
don't.
Aren't all horrors?
I'm surprised they don't have whites because they have white cards. They're just not creature type white. Anyway, cool. Well, that was just me trying to stump you there, and didn't work.
Oh
at
yeah,
all.
it's Hunted Lamassu from
Hunted
Ravnica.
Lamassu.
Yeah. It's been chased by I think it's 2.
What is it though? Describe it to me.
It's like I'm not looking at the picture, but it's kind of like a sphinx. It's similar to a sphinx, but it's got talons, I think, instead.
Well, they have sphinxes on Ravnica. Why can't it just be a sphinx?
I don't know.
They have griffins on Ravnica.
Yeah, all right,
this is what I'm talking about, and this is what I'm talking about. To bring it back round to the episode, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they've got like goat heads. There's also one from Tarkir, Venerable Lamassu as well.
Whatever. Whatever.
They are enigmatic travellers of Tarkis, soaring high above the lands in all seasons. None know their true purpose. Neither do you, Andy.
No.
They often
Neither
arrive
do we.
on the eve
Neither
of
do the
great
design
conflict or the turning points in history.
Yeah, great.
And this is the Great Slate
Sphinx.
Debate is a turning point in
So
history.
it's a dumb sphinx. It's a sphinx that is off the ball. It's the sphinx is
They
like
ruled. This is. I'm just basically quoting the flavour text. They ruled the Velds. What the fuck are the Velds? Before the city grew, now they roam ravenous skies, but their ancient enemies have not forgotten them.
excellent. Cool. Right. Well, there we go. So Lamassu is a
Lamassu, yeah, it's a very strange one though. It is basically like a goat sphinx instead of a instead of a human face.
But then they have sphinxes. They've got goat sphinxes on Amonkhet. Oh.
Yeah, no, it's
Alright.
weird. Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
So what we've done for this episode is we're going to keep it to humanoids, as an anthropomorphized animals.
Yeah.
So any kind of animal human kind of crossover in a creature type. I'm aware that this might come off a little bit speciesist against anything that isn't a human.
If anyone's getting offended by the fact that we're not. Okay, good. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's worth noting that even though human is a creature type, there are no creature cards that are like human berserker, human soldier. Do you know what I mean? It's all, Aven berserker, Aven soldier.
Soldiers.
In the no. Sorry, in the creature name.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You have an Aven mind
right, you've got
sensor.
Elvish warrior that's an Elvish warrior.
Yeah. But you don't have human sorcerer.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, because it's just a soldier.
This is what I'm saying. So
I see what you mean, yeah.
humans are the baseline in Magic, and I don't want anyone to offend any non-human listeners that are listening to this. I'm not going to say that you're not human if you don't want to be human.
Okay, yeah, cool. Not just pets.
Or any other kind of species that might be listening.
Yeah. If
I'm just trying to cover my bases.
If there are any Leonin out there,
I'm just trying to cover my bases. And the way that we've kind of looked at this as well is it's completely from my perspective. Nathan's going to be a bit of a sounding board to whether I'm right on the money, or at least between us two. But this is, as I say, this is completely subjective. So I've done a little sliding scale before we get into like what is and what isn't an animal crossover. And one end of the scale is it's its own thing. And the other end of the scale is it's a humanoid, as in an animal-human crossover that we're going to talk about now. And there are things slide along the scale. So at one end of the scale, it's the own things. I've put down things like Sphinx, manticores, and harpies, because whilst a lot of them do have, say, human faces, classically or whatever, they're not a human that happens to have the body of a lion.
Yeah, it's a creature that has a quality of a human, not a human with the quality of a creature.
Yeah, it's so far its own way, right? Nearing the middle, but I still think before the middle point cutoff, for me at least, you have things like sirens and merfolk. Merfolk was a bit of an odd one, because I kind of thought, yes, they are, in generic myth and fantasy, they are fish humans. But in Magic the Gathering, they are more...
Well, they're not mermaids, they're merfolk.
Yeah, they're merfolk. Yeah. Like you wouldn't say a Vidalcan is just like a blue human with extra arms on some planes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
They're their own thing. And I think that applies to merfolk in this sense. And sirens as well by sort of that default. Right up against the cutoff, but on the other side where I think actually we can talk about this, I've put down werewolves. I know you've got a bit of a thing about werewolves that we'll get onto, but for me... Yep, I think we'll talk about those. And then heading up more towards it's an anthropomorphized animal, we have things like Kitsune, which are the fox creatures from Kamigawa and all of those kind of guys. Satyr and centaurs, definitely. Minotaurs, although minotaurs for me are a bit contentious.
Okay, well, because they're slightly more...
They are their own thing, but I think we'll get into it. In terms of creature typing for Magic, because which is what it's all about. This is why we're kind of trying to classify these. And then right up against the other end of the scale of it's a human-animal thing, is everything else. So, your Avens, your Leonin, your whatever. So we're going to talk about them all now. So that just kind of gives you a subjective baseline of what I think constitutes, something that probably shouldn't have its own creature type, or if it does have its own creature type, why then do other like things have, instead of Viashino, for example, why is it not lizard? Yeah. Instead of a cat, why is it not a Leonin or whatever else? So we're going to go through them. We're going to talk about Nagas near the end, because I think we need to get through the thought process on a lot of these different animal types to see whether it should be Naga or it should be snake.
Maybe we change our minds.
Maybe we change our minds. We won't, but maybe we will.
Open to a possibility of suggestion.
Yeah. So let's jump into one which I think is actually quite a popular one in terms of people. It's a popular tribe, and it's still a point of contention for a lot of people, both ways, and I've seen it in all different ways, and that is cat people. So whether that's Leonin, or Nakatl, or Panther Warriors, or Rakshasa.
Or the
Thundercats.
Which definitely... Oh my god, why hasn't that been done?
Which they're definitely... The Thundercats, I think, would definitely be Nakatl.
Let's do the next Hasbro.
I think they'd be Nakatl, wouldn't they?
Thundercats. And they put them as Leonin. And they do Leonin just to annoy everybody.
Yeah, Panthro would be a Leonin.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. No, they'd probably just be cats, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
But this is the thing, right? Because when you talk about Leonins, and I'm going to use Leonin as the generic term because Leonins are only called Leonin on Theros and on wherever Rajani's from.
Alara, yeah. And Alara, you've got the cattle.
Well, you've got the Nakatl, which are the Naya cats specifically as well. And on Dominaria, they're just the Panther Warriors. And then the Rakshasa are the cat demons on Tarkir, which are still cats. And these guys all have the creature typing of cat. They don't have their own thing. But a lot of people I know still think that, so say we mentioned before in this show where we talked about there's a person at RLGS that runs a cats deck that's literally cats and not cat people. Because they don't think that Leonins are cats. And they won't include them in their deck, which I think is a valid point.
Yeah, the problem then is if you look at then these 4 different tribes, like we've always said this about Lord Windgrace, how it's strange that he has a follower who's riding what is clearly a non-sentient panther.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
follower
yeah, sure.
of a
the Black White
panther.
Legend from Dominaria is a human member of the Panther Knights.
Yeah.
And she's riding a panther
instead of
that's an actual panther.
Yeah. Which then I guess at that point did evolution devolve a little? And I guess that's also a question, if you're thinking about it from like a scientific biological point of view, are these separate races? Like did the cats evolve into cats and then the cat folk evolve into cat folk? Is it the same kind of thing of where, sorry to offend you if you don't believe in evolution, but in the same way that humans and gorillas essentially evolved from a similar eventual point, is that the same thing for cats and cat folk, or cats the unevolved version, Leonin are the evolved version of cats?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's biologically, where does that question, where does that lie?
At least for that plane, right?
Yeah, and that's obviously questions that we're not going to get answers to. No one's going to do a how-to on that. But the problem if you do Leonin, and you separate cats and Leonin out, is that then you have to also separate out every cat folk as being a Leonin.
Yeah, which they're not.
Which you can't really, because they are separate tribes,
or you
races,
have them all
demographics,
be exactly their
however
own
you
tribe,
want to do it, yeah.
And then it becomes very difficult.
So, if anything, this is a good argument for why, and how I can get why the person's choosing not to play those cards in their cat deck. But
just aesthetically, right?
If they did rename it to Leonin, they wouldn't be able to play it in their cat deck anyway.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's
that's an argument
cats.
for exclusion rather than an argument for exclusion.
Because it's such a popular tribe.
Oh, sorry, the other way around.
Because obviously they have a planeswalker that is Leonin in Ajani, so it's quite a popular tribe just off the bat because of that. It gives you the options, especially in these like sort of larger Eternal formats, to make a cat deck which has both, a cat deck that has one or the other.
Or a cat deck that has,
the other one, right? So it's good. It is worth noting that the Rakshasa specifically do actually have a root in real world mythology. So a lot of all of these animal crossovers have base in like generic fantasy.
Yeah, well, like Minotaur, for example, was originally cursed to have half the body of a
yeah.
Magic has taken that trope and expanded it.
Sure, but I mean, some of them are just generic fantasy, whereas other ones do have quite a recognizable like single point of going, oh, it's that myth that thing's come from, as opposed to a lot of them, they've all come from myths and legends, but now they're just part of generic fantasy. The Rakshasa are part of Hindu mythology. So that is something. It has a direct thing, but they still elected to say that it's a cat demon. Yeah. They didn't then make the subtype Rakshasa, and that was also in a set.
In the same set that they did the Naga thing.
Was in the same set that they did the Naga thing in Tarkir when Nagas first came around, but it was also in a set which didn't have any other relevant cats really, so they could have very easily done Rakshasa. And also, no one's playing Rakshasa in a cat tribal deck. I mean, obviously you can if you want to, but it's
because they were the more awkward colours.
Well, yeah, they're in Sultai.
They're the only green, the only black and blue cats that I can think of.
No, what together?
As in, like, you've got the elemental, frost lynx is an elemental cat that's blue.
Well, you have black cat as well,
and you've got black cat. But yeah, like in terms of actual
multicolored cats, yeah. So
it also allowed you to have your first green demon.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah, blue demon, first blue demon.
No, there were other blue demons. There's dimmer demons.
Oh no, of course it is. Yeah, like the Mistblade Shinobi.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, I mean I think that's quite a big one, because I'd say snakes, if we're bringing this all back to, debating snakes, is Leonin and snakes are both very popular tribes, like cats and snakes are. So the fact that they chose to do this with cats and not snakes is quite telling. And the way that they use like mythological names as well.
Yeah, and considering how different Leonin are to cats, like there is, I mean, apart from the fact of like, human pecs and everything like that, which I guess again biologically, do the cats have 8 teats or 12 teats like normal cats would? And then obviously we've seen on certain cat cards that are female that they basically just have normal human mammary glands. Human babies. So, at what point? And that's the biological debate right there. Settled down already. It's amount of boobs.
I just think most artists would feel a bit uncomfortable drawing a human body
doing
with
a
a bunch of
bikini that
teats.
has eight. Well, why not?
I just don't think it reads.
Why not?
I'm not an art director. I'm just a consumer.
Oh, sorry, that's not sexy enough. It looks a bit weird. Good, it should do. It's a cat person.
I just don't think it reads very well on
Fair
a
enough.
card.
That's fine. But yeah, no, it's more my in general musing. But this is where I think our baseline should be of where if you've got all these different races and all these different tribes, all these different interpretations of cat people, and they're all essentially cat people. Do we make the people side the thing that we isolate and go Leonin, a cattle, Rakshasa, or do we go, well, they're all cats on a base level, they're still cats, so should they be able to synergize with other cats and have affinity with other cats? Probably. Apart from being cats being arseholes and not really getting along with anything anyway, obviously they should be able to work communally together, whether they're, a little lynx or an actual human.
Another thing, and this is more of a practical gameplay thing, this is also something that I attribute to a lot of whether I think like these should be tribes together, the anthropomorphic versions and the kind of regular versions. And this is completely subjective, and this is actually something which people might look at me and go, well, that's completely arbitrary, because it is. And that's what I call the token test. If I was to make a cat deck, and the cats had Leonin, and then like a leopard, and then a cat thing, and then a whole bunch of cat tokens, both anthropomorphized and not, would it look visually weird to me to have that on the battlefield?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, it looks fine, then generally speaking, I think that works as the Leonin having a cat subtype. Yeah. Whereas I think, oh no, that would look kind of odd. That might give some credence aesthetically, at least, to it having its own creature type.
Yeah, that's
Do you know?
Yeah, and then this is me just kind of my brain going off on a tangent. There's little things like, if you were a Leonin on Ravnica and you had a pet cat, would you be like brothers in arms, or would it still be your pet?
Well, if you were to go to see a monkey at a zoo, are you busting that monkey out the zoo?
I suppose not. It's just I don't know.
I say monkey.
These are the
before we get comments. Ape. Yes, I know apes and monkeys are different.
I don't know the question. I mean, yeah, because the whole point is like, yeah,
they would probably be nicer to them.
Yeah, you'd assume so, right?
I mean, I don't want to be against species about it. I don't want to try and say what a Leonin would or wouldn't do to a cat, but I would imagine that'd be nicer to them.
And then the other question is also like, so Felinda Sovereign is a cat beast. Mm-hmm. Aren't all cats beasts?
Okay. So now beast is a subtype. This is going a little bit.
That's the thing. You're using that as a super type.
I think that is best used to describe something that is bestial, as in like it's feral.
Okay, so you're saying all other cats are nice and
if they're
not necessarily unfair.
Well, no, but they have they're not like your regular house cat, of which there are house cat types in Magic, especially in Ravnica.
Sanctuary cat and Adorned Stray.
They're not like feral. They're not civilized, but they're not feral.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And then what about Jared being a cat giant? Because then giants, then as we want to, I know. Give me the.
Well, no, but Jared he's a giant cat.
But he's not. Yeah, but I mean, he's a giant cat. He's not. But he's not of a race of giants that have, and then he's not the only of the race of cat giants. He is just a giant cat.
Yeah.
So why does he have to have giant on him instead of being like? It's like saying big. It's a big cat.
Well, no, because giants might have different physiology. He just happens to be a cat version.
Yeah, so that's what I think. I think he just happens to be a big cat, and they went, "Oh well, because he's big."
Because if you've got a cat deck and you've got a bunch of Leonins and you want to know which one's the biggest,
okay, that's how we do it. Clearly, that's.
We need a giant synergy in this cat deck.
But that's then the question of where certain creature types then can become classes. It's like, is giant a class or a creature type? I'd argue that giant should be a class, like we said before, like with Elder or.
But they don't really have this is it. They don't really have a bearing on how the game mechanics work. There aren't splits between tribes and classes.
Yeah. No,
it's just creature types.
Exactly.
Okay.
Anyway, Cat's one that has a lot we can.
These are valid. On the other end of the spectrum, you have, and I'm going to lump these two in together. Are Loxodons and Rocks.
Yeah.
So Loxodons are the elephant folk, which you find on planes like Ravnica and on Mirrodin.
Yes.
And then you have Rocks as well, which are the rhino folk, which you have on the plane of Bant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so they were. I can't remember somewhere else that they came up because the original Rocks was from years and years.
Sure.
Before. So it might be Dominaria. It's probably Dominaria.
Probably Dominaria. It's worth noting that both of these creature types, outside of their folk incarnation, are quite relevant token types as well. There are some elephants and there are some rhinos that are in creature card form, but quite a lot of things make rhino tokens and elephant tokens. Yeah. So whilst you wouldn't have the backup to play a tribal elephant deck or a tribal rocks deck, you could, in some board states, have relevance for these creature types. Yeah. So
if you play Terrastodon alongside
both of these have elephant and rhino in their creature type. They don't have their own one. The only basis when I was doing research for this, I was looking at where outside of just generic fantasy, what were the pinpoint areas where these creatures were inspired from. The only thing that I came up with was Loxodons. Their name, Loxodon, is a Magic the Gathering word. And it was the creative team took the word Loxodonta, which is the genus name for African elephants.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And then
you might think it would have come from, say, like Vishnu, or like from an Indian derogatory.
Yeah, there are lots of gods in different world religions that have animal heads.
If you look at, say, Amonkhet, obviously that had a lot of parallels to people like Ra and Anubis.
Yeah, sure. Rhinos, I couldn't find anything specific, but there must be some kind of fancy trip about rhino.
I think Rox was an invented type.
So, I mean, there's not too much to say about Rox and Loxodons because they're not very relevant creature types in any way, shape, or form.
They don't have a lot of tribal synergy.
No, they don't. So. But it's interesting, again, they've gone very hard on going, no, these are rhinos that just happen to be people as well.
Yeah, they're just evolved rhinos and evolved elephants in the same way that Leonin are just evolved cats.
And if we do get a Rox commander in the future that is like relevant to, as a Rox lord, essentially, that will become relevant.
Yeah, because then it will allow you to use things like the I can't remember what, the 7 and a green Convoke trample token generator from, maybe it wasn't Convoke, maybe it was Populate.
Oh, Jirid.
That too. Actually, that's a really good example. To be fair, yeah, you'd play the hell out of Jirid in that deck, or you'd play the Rox Legend in it.
Himself not being a rhino, but creating rhinos. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so yeah, there's not much to say about those guys, but it's worth noting that I think they still fall into the same category, and again, they have the animal creature type, not their own thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Minotaurs. Minotaurs are interesting because you'd think in the collective consciousness of like world mythology, you immediately know what a Minotaur is.
Yeah.
There are different versions of Minotaurs. Some of them it's just the head, some of them it's the whole upper torso. Yeah. Other ones it's the head and then the waist down, but the torso is that of like a broad human.
Yeah, I think the idea is you want to keep some aspect of... Yeah, you want to denote that it's somewhat humanized. So
for those of you that don't know what a Minotaur is, just because you haven't heard the word before, it's like a bull human.
Yeah,
it's a human with the head of a bull.
Head of a bull, yeah,
and maybe the legs of a bull or the torso of a bull.
I can't remember who it was that was cursed originally to man the labyrinth, but it was a cursed human. He was cursed with the head of a bull. It wasn't that it was an evolution or a beast that generated from the gods or whatever.
No, it wasn't.
A curse.
Yeah, it was a cursed human.
Yeah, so obviously their magic's taken that. Essentially what was a bastardization of a human, then gone, well, let's make that an actual creature type and then expand it to being, hey, let's have some female ones.
But again, this is the token test again, you see. Yeah. So, you could argue, the argument is that you, instead of Minotaurs, which have their own creature type of Minotaur is a creature type tribe, is that you could make it bull.
Yeah, or ox.
Because there are oxes in Magic.
Yeah.
And then that would be fine. And then you could have an ox deck, which is mostly Minotaurs, but with a smattering of other...
2/4s, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of relevant oxes.
I think there's even a cow. There are 3 cow cards, but they're in the unhinged sets, so that doesn't really...
Well, what's bartered cow in Eldraine?
I think she's an ox.
Okay, that's the argument, right? But again, if you look at the token test, I think that Minotaurs are so solidified in their sort of standing in world mythology. If I had a board state that had a bunch of ox tokens and Minotaurs, it wouldn't look right. It wouldn't feel flavorfully like that is correct.
So then what's the difference then between cows and Minotaurs and cats and Leonin?
Well, I don't know, but I don't know.
I guess for me it feels... I guess also they don't look like normal... Like I would say normal, get air quoting, normal cow people.
Yeah.
Like if you look at say Fire Song and Sunspeaker, they look a little bit different to the Theorosian ones.
Yeah, they all have their own flavour, right?
And it doesn't feel wrong. It would feel weird for them to be cows or ox or bulls. It would feel weird for that. But I think maybe it's because it's a creature type that I'm already aware of outside of Magic.
So because it has real world cachet, and real world gravitas to say that's a Minotaur, and we understand what Minotaurs are like from the myths and stories and generic fantasy we've already come across. Like we understand that's a creature type. And but that's valid. I think that's valid. It's just you need to keep that consistent.
Yeah.
In the same way that they felt for the Rakshasas, that Rakshasa didn't have enough cachet, at least in the West. So make it a cat demon.
Yeah, and plus since we had cats and you already had demons as creature types, why not? I guess part of the reason why... Obviously, they weren't. I think ox and cows came out after Minotaurs were a creature type anyway, because
Minotaurs were from Alpha.
Yeah, Haloon Minotaur.
Yeah, was the first one. So I think that's something worth noting as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Making a mental note that was an Alpha.
So if the creature type Minotaur came before, it doesn't make any real sense. Obviously, you can't errata every cow to be a Minotaur because they don't deserve that status.
Sure,
but you're not going to then go, oh, well, now we've got ox, we just make them all ox. Sure. That doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Similar creature types. I'm just going to blitz straight on to something that's very much in the same ballpark. We have satyrs and centaurs.
Satyrs are not being goats and horses.
Yeah, not being goats and horses, even though centaurs especially are literally the torso of a man plonked onto the rest of the body of a horse, minus the head.
Yeah, the way I look at the reason my justification for that would be that you don't. They're not. That's not the human part of it. Isn't really a human without like. It's not like it's a. In the same way, you would never call Leonin human cat or cat human.
No.
In the same way, you can't really call a centaur a horse without calling it a human horse.
I think as well, at least in the collective consciousness, and this goes for satyrs as well, is that the human aspects of satyrs, centaurs, even minotaurs, they're not. It's not just like a Homo sapien plonked onto the body of a horse. At least not anymore in fantasy. They have their own sort of like features and they have their own culture. It's not just like you or I could suddenly get the body of a horse and we're centaurs.
Yeah,
we would be some human stuck onto the body of a horse.
I guess this also maybe falls into the fact that this is again a fantasy trope that existed pre-magic.
Oh, absolutely,
and outside of the game beforehand. Whereas I'm pretty sure Leonin, Loxodon, and Rox were kind of they feel like they were generated from the game.
They definitely took vague ideas and made them Magic the Gathering.
Things. Whereas centaurs, as much as there are centaurs in Magic, that's what it feels like. That it just happens to be centaurs and satyrs and minotaurs in the game that we already play.
So we're saying that because they have that kind of cachet and they have that kind of weight to them, that centaurs and satyrs are relevant creature types, and that's fine.
Different enough from their counterparts that I think that's fine. It doesn't feel like a goat evolved into a satyr. The difference between something evolving naturally into something and something being created in that image, like especially if we're looking at Theros for satyrs and centaurs and stuff, I imagine they were created to be like that to begin with, instead of just developing from an animal into something more humanoid.
Yeah, sure. Cool. All right, I think that's fair enough for centaurs and minotaurs and satyrs. It's also worth noting that the first centaur was printed in 1995 in a weird like promo thing. It was to do with a book that got released.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. I agree. I think that's true. All right, another one then. I think this one seems pretty clear cut, but is still up for debate, I think, a little bit, is Avens, bird people.
Yeah, so I guess this then falls back into that categorization of... I mean, I'm not saying this is the definitive like distinction of whether or not you evolved or were created as such, but I think the difficult thing about Aven as well as across multiple different sets is that they all kind of look a little bit different.
Yeah.
The only one that's really strikes out for me is Kefnet looking weird because it's got human hands, but obviously Kefnet was the god.
Well, Kefnet, yeah, which is another thing. That's a little thing to touch on, is that the Amonkhet gods, which all had animal features to them, didn't have the animal subtyping next to the god.
No, I think the whole point is they were just supposed to be layered over the top. But it's like certain, like say for example Kakar. Kakar has, we don't actually know which plane Kakar's from, which is interesting because the dress and garb looks a little bit different. That has human hands.
Sure.
And some Aven will not have human hands. Some Aven will have hands incorporated into their wings.
Like the one in Centaur.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, this is where I kind of agree with the Nakatl Leonin thing of, if you have so many little distinct different bird people, you can't
their own tribes.
You can't call them bird humans because that would be weird because they're not humans.
Yeah.
So I think bird is fine. In general, I'm surprised it's not Aven. I would have just gone for Aven. Why not Aven instead? Because it kind of
as the creature
the creature type. Yeah, Aven wizards, Aven soldier.
Sure, but again,
it's the same number of letters.
Sure, but I think going back to the very arbitrary like token testing, I think in my mind, Avens being like a human bird creature person does have some sort of affinity with just birds in general.
Yeah, I guess, there are enough birds that it works the same way.
And they're like bird tokens are like a huge token type in Magic.
Yeah,
and it doesn't seem like Kanji, for example, which is a bird commander, is a Aven.
Yeah, and it cares about birds. Yeah, the only thing the only other reason I'd argue against that is that a lot of the tribal support for birds is for creatures with flying, which obviously Aven would have anyway.
Sure,
that's the only reason I'd say go for Aven for that, because it does create a distinct, especially when there are no birds out there with hands.
Sure,
but there are some Avens that have hands. So then you can have in the same deck, you can have hands and not hands in the same tribe. That's the only reason why I think it would be a bit strange. But I think in general they haven't really had a distinct, this is what Aven in our game look like. They've got them. They can be broad enough that it doesn't really matter. Like most Loxodon look kind of the same. Most Leonin look the same. Obviously you've got the different tribes that look distinct different, but that's why they've got the different names for them. So
sure.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think when you've got enough little differences between them, you want to keep them all in the same kind of category. I think that's absolutely fine.
Cool. All right, I agree. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay. Viashino. Viashino are the lizard folk. Viashino have their own creature type. Yeah. So it's Viashino warrior, Viashino cleric, whatever else. Lizard people in fantasy, There are lots of lizard people tropes in fantasy, but they're usually just called something like lizard warrior. So something in like D&D or something.
There is literally a card called Lizard Warrior.
Yeah.
It is a humanoid lizard that is a lizard warrior that hasn't been errated to be a Viashino.
No, so that is a lizard.
It is just still a lizard warrior.
But the first Viashinos were printed fairly early on, weren't they? The first one was printed in Mirage. Yeah.
So the fact that they've gone back so far, and it's again in the whole evolution thing, it feels like Viashino would have evolved from lizards, and there are enough lizards. There's no lizard support really, but there are enough lizards that why not just make them lizards? Why do they have to have their? Why do they get to be so damn special?
I don't know.
Like that's the thing about it. Like I'm looking through all of these creature types. I'm like Leonin, really resonant. Loxodon, really resonant. Like. But yeah, no, Viashino, we get our own thing. Lizards are like underrepresented in Viashino. This is part of where the gripe gets me. If it's a highly represented tribe, you can argue why you might not want to make them all fall into the same category. Because again, what if we start doing tribal support? It makes all the other tribal support too strong. Sure. We don't want to just have. We don't want to inundate a tribe or a specific race or a creature type with too many options or too much stuff.
Yeah.
But when you're when lizards isn't exactly an overrepresented tribe or creature type, why not?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird. And at the same time, it doesn't irk me. Like if I look at it, and it's not like Naga where I look at it and I get a little bit angry inside. I look at Viashino and I'm kind of used to it. But it does when you think about it, and the fact there is literally a lizard warrior that they haven't errated, because we're going to get into some erratering in a little bit. But the fact they haven't errated the lizard warrior to be a Viashino is strange when it's the only lizard warrior out there, and you might as well just have made it a Viashino if you're the only one of your type.
Sure.
You're not like the Phyrexian Dreadnought where you're really an important 12/12 for 1 mana. You're just a crappy 3. You're a 3/3 for 4 mana. That's it. That's all you are.
Yeah.
Why not get errated?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's. Yeah,
I mean, it's the list. It's my top of because I listed all of these creature types under ones that do equal the animal counterpart, and then ones that don't equal their counterpart. Like for example, Flamekin. And this is a bit of a niche case because it's not technically an animal to be an elemental, but Flamekin aren't Flamekin creature type. They're elementals, even though they look very different to what any other normal elemental would be.
But then there are other Flamekin across the multiverse, which are like Afrits. Afrits are kind of like Flamekin.
But I think that would be even cooler if you could then make the Flamekin from Lorwyn and the Afrits kind of in a similar category because or the Jin, for example, from Tarkir from the Jeskai tribe.
Sure, yeah.
Like maybe they should have been Flamekin as well instead of being Jin. I mean, that was more of a side note.
Potentially, yeah.
But yeah, the fact that there is already an analog and you didn't go.
I wouldn't be upset if Viashino. Say if they did a complete because they've already done one kind of shake of creature types. If they did another one,
and dinosaurs, which were also lizards.
Yeah, well, dinosaurs were lizards, and then they made dinosaurs. Can they
get their reptiles right? And the snakes as well. Why can't they do the reptile species any justice?
I don't know. I wouldn't be upset if Viashino would change to be lizards. If just magically overnight they changed Viashino to lizards. Well, yeah. It's worth noting as well that a lot of the points we're bringing up this isn't the first time a lot of this stuff's being brought up. A lot of people do talk to Mark Rosewater on his blog talk about this. Mark Rosewater has been quoted as saying that he thinks Viashino is a mistake and that they should be lizards as well. So he's on the side of that.
Yeah. The problem with obviously these kinds of great debate changes is that you have to change a lot.
Yeah, you do have to change a lot.
You can't just go back and be like, oh, okay, so we can just. It's like I'm really surprised that they changed the vernacular for direct damage.
Sure.
Because there were so many cards, and I still to this day when I'm teaching people, I'm like, no, this was from before the change, so it can still hit a planeswalker.
Yeah.
Especially now that they make distinctions, it muddies it up so much. Like, stop changing your vernacular. I know it's supposed to help, but it doesn't.
It evolves the game.
Yeah,
it does a lot of the time.
I know, but it's hard. It's hard when you're playing with old cards and they all say different things, but they all mean the same bloody thing.
All right.
Anyway, side rant.
This is a big one. Werewolves. Werewolves have the creature type, because most of them, not all of them, but most of them are flip cards.
Yes.
So the front half, which is the human side, so before it's transformed, will say human werewolf. That's generally what the creature type is, maybe with something else on it as well. When it flips over to be a werewolf, it loses the human creature typing and just becomes werewolf. At no point is it wolf, so it's not the animal version that you would attribute to it being. I think we've got quite different opinions on this.
Yeah.
Talk me through why you don't like werewolves.
So
in Magic the Gathering.
I don't like the fact that it's human werewolf on one side and then just werewolf on the other, because if you're still a werewolf when you're a human, then you should still be a human when you're a werewolf. That's one isolated point. why are you a human werewolf instead of just being a human wolf? I know that because for me, when you turn into a werewolf, I know you're not supposed to be the same. You're not literally turning into a wolf. You are still kind of a bit weird. If you look at, say, how they represented it in the third Harry Potter film, like, it still looks like a humanized version ish.
Right.
In my mind, you should just kind of turn into a slightly bigger wolf. I mean, I know that, like, the what do they call them when they got changed? Wolfear? Was it Wolfear when they got?
So yeah, when Avacyn blessed the werewolves on Innistrad, some of them stayed wolves and they became Wolfear.
And they became wolves, but they still looked human. They
still
had human. They
human proportions.
They didn't get put back down into being a wolf size.
They weren't on all fours.
No, exactly. They kept all of the anthropomorphized bits of it, but they were just wolves because they were no longer able to change back into the human, which surely should then make them more This is what. So my argument is that if you're going to do human werewolf and then take that away and put wolf and just werewolf, why isn't it just human wolf? Because you are a combination of human and wolf. Okay. If you're going to put the human on it, I feel like you need to put the wolf on it. If you don't put the human on it, you don't need, because they're always werewolves at all times. Okay, right?
Yeah.
And because you're losing out on the human synergy, yes, but you've also already lost out on all wolf synergy anyway, because they're never, at no point are they wolves.
Right. Okay. So I think werewolves are kind of their own case when it comes to this whole thing. I almost didn't put them on this table, but I kind of thought, well, they're literally human animals, so fine. The way that they've done, so they firstly, whether it should be wolf or werewolf or whatever else, should wolf be on the creature typing? Like Minotaurs, like Centaurs, like Satyrs, I think werewolves obviously have enough going on in sort of world fantasy and world myths that they deserve their own creature type. Mm-hmm. So straight away, that's fine. Yeah. The way that they get around it with its obvious affinity to wolves, because even on Innistrad, a lot of the werewolf flavour still has an affinity for wolves. If you look at something like Uruk of the Kralin Horde, is it Uruk's Chosen? No, there's a red wolf with a green activation cost that is like, but it's whatever. It's like it's Ulrich's kind of like kin. So the werewolves on Innistrad not only have the suggestion that they're wolf-like affiliate, they literally are wolf affiliate. But they get around this by having any kind of tribal synergy have any wolf or werewolf gets +1/+1. Right. So they always cluster them in together.
They always cluster them
which
together.
Which I think's good, but I think that's nice and flavourful.
Together, why not just make
because in the flavour of werewolves, and this is something they really wanted to express when they did the function, even because they gave them flip cards for a start. When you're a human in your human form and you are a werewolf, or you have, the term is lycanthropy, you are a human that's trying to contain the werewolf inside. You are still a werewolf, that is still who you are, but you are also this part of this human consciousness. When you turn into a werewolf, it's like the werewolf side has won out, which for 99% of the werewolf population in Innistrad means they become more bestial and more feral. So you're not a human werewolf anymore, you are your full werewolf self.
So they've basically gone full deep on the flavour.
Yeah. Which I think's great.
Because if you get inflicted with vampirism, you're not a human vampire.
No, I didn't include vampires in this. We've not actually talked about vampires. They are, in my mind, they're the same. We're going to have an
undead debate as well.
Yeah. In my mind, vampires, when it comes to whether they're bats or not, is that they're merfolk. They're merfolk.
Yeah, like the more I talk about it, the more I disagree with the fact that they should be wolves, because because I don't think that they've evolved from wolves to be a human.
No,
wolf.
It's another curse. Yeah.
But that's the thing is, I get why, and I get if you're going full deep on the flavour, and you can this is obviously why this is utterly subjective, because it's very easy to argue why and justify why the human side of them should still be apparent on their card on one side, and then it's nice that they lose their humanity when they flip over.
Sure.
For me, the thing that I don't like is the fact that they are werewolves at all times anyway. So the fact they're a human inherently means that they're still a human. If there's still a werewolf in the human, then there's still a human in the werewolf.
Yes. Yes. And
that's where it gets annoying.
But I think you couldn't.
Because I get it's a human advisor that also happens to be a werewolf. It's like, yeah, but you're a werewolf that also happens to be a human advisor, so you shouldn't have lost.
But if you think about it, if you think about it in the flavour of, say, like a deck, for example, say you were playing in like limited or standard, and you had werewolves synergy. Werewolves are green. A lot of the humans in that set were green as well. Pardon me. When they're human werewolf, they still get the buffs from
exactly. They still get the synergy from the
synergies and stuff like that. When they're werewolves, it would be very odd to see a werewolf as a wolf still getting +1/+1 for each human.
I agree. Yeah.
Right.
The other thing, maybe it should have been human werewolf on the human side, and then werewolf wolf on the wolf side.
Oh no, I know. But I know what you're saying.
You see what I mean? Like that's the thing.
In my mind, I think it's perfect the way.
Yeah, no, of course. And this is the thing. This is the thing where it's personal preference comes massively down in this point, because it just if it feels wrong, I don't know why it feels wrong. I mean, I do because I've just justified it. But I mean, the whole point is that if something feels right or doesn't feel right for whatever reason, then try and figure out why. Don't just be like, oh, I don't like this because. Be like, no, because why? And for me, as long as you can find the reason for why, then at least even if you can kind of agree to disagree a little bit. And I can happily play devil's advocate to most arguments anyway. And I do see where you're coming from. I think also it kind of just felt a bit weird that is a human werewolf advisor. Like, he still managed to carry on being the town mayor, even though he was a werewolf.
You're talking about Mayor of Averbrook.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like, and it's just that little bit at the back of it when it goes human werewolf advisor. Oh, first I'm a human, second I'm a werewolf, but third I'm an advisor.
Well, he's still got a job to do.
Yeah, I know. He's still got a job to do. Good.
Okay then. Swiftly moving on to... We're getting close to Nagas. We're getting close. We're getting real close to Nagas and nailing this down. Let's talk about hounds.
Yeah.
Let's talk about hounds. This could have been its own episode.
We've gone off the back of wolves into hounds.
Yeah. Man. So
this is another thing.
All right.
I'm griping over.
Okay. So the hound people, as they are now, because this is already a point of contention, are the Ainok.
I say Ainok. I don't. But obviously, again, we don't have
Ainok.
Yeah. I mean,
Ainok.
I mean, it's Persian. If it's Persian inspired, then are probably Ainok.
Sure. These are the hound people from Tarkir. So I suppose Mongolian inspired. Right? Yeah. Now these are hounds. They don't have their own creature type. They are hounds. And there's not really much to say about them as a creature type. No. They're quite clever in terms of they belong to some of the different houses on Tarkir.
Yeah, Abzan typically.
Abzan, and they're also in the Timur Frontier.
Yeah, there's a couple, yeah.
Yeah, but the ones in Timur Frontier are based off of Mastiffs.
Yeah.
And the ones that are of the Abzan, you're going to hate this, are based off of Jackals.
Yeah.
Which we'll get onto Jackals on the other half of this, right? But yes, they're dog people, they're hound people. They are hounds, and hound is the creature type that is used for most dogs or canines that aren't foxes. Again, Mark Rosewater has said that he would rather it was dog.
See, that's funny because I'm glad that it's not dog.
But I think his justification on the Blogger was that hound is a way to describe a dog in the same way as a poodle or a
I suppose, yeah.
Labrador.
It's not like, yeah, it would be like calling...
like a mutt.
Yeah, it'd be like calling cats Toms or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know what you mean. Yeah, well, to be fair, if it was creature type Mog, I'd be quite happy.
Sure, what, for cats?
Yeah, I'd be really happy.
Creature type tabby.
Yeah. Hey, Jareth, what are you? I'm a Mog giant.
I'm a tabby giant.
Oh, yes,
giant
please.
tabby.
Why?
No, tabby giant.
We're moving away
tabby
from the
giant.
fetishes. No.
Sure. So yeah, Inox. But again, they're hound, and that seems to make sort of sense.
That works.
Again, dog people, they're actually not that represented in fantasy.
It's the only representation we see, apart from the whole werewolf thing, but they're very clearly distinct.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's not a... This is the thing. Lycanthropy is a very specific affliction. Obviously, it's not their biological, typical makeup.
Yeah.
Whereas these look like they were essentially dogs that evolved to have more
anthropomorphic
qualities. Yeah. So I think hound is fine.
The thing that is really the kind of lead in is actually, we're not going to talk about Inox really, they're just the kind of setup to talk about Jackals. The Kenra. So the Kenra are a race of what you would think are hound people that live on Amonkhet. They have their own creature type, so they're Jackals. The Kenra are Jackals. And I suppose it's not their own creature type, is it? Because otherwise that'd be Kenra. So the Kenra are jackal heads then. They're jackals. Jackal folk, which are separate to hound folk.
Yeah.
Now, this is super interesting, because I can see you getting upset, because you are upset, and it is upsetting. So there have been jackal cards in Magic before. What were the
So you had Dowthy Jackal, which was a creature type, Dowthy Hound. So Dowthy's a creature type, Jackal's a creature type. Now, it wasn't before.
So right now, so something from me being confusing. Yeah. When this was first printed,
so when the card Dowthy Jackal, which is the name of the creature, when it was first printed, it was printed as a Dowthy Hound as its creature type. It has since been errated to Jackal because they've made Jackals. But when you already had a Jackal card that was a Hound, why didn't you just make all of your Jackals?
I think there's one step further. When they were originally printed, they were Jackal.
Yeah, but
then they got errated to Hound, and then errated back to Jackal when the Jackals of the Kenra came into Amonkhet.
So you think it was a Jackal to be... No, because Jackal Pup is a Hound.
Yeah, it was, but when it was... But that was later on, when the earlier Jackals were printed.
Yeah, now they've errated it back to being Jackal.
Now they've errated it back to Jackal.
That's what I mean. So why? And this is annoying.
I mean, this is just confusing to listen to.
If you're going to have to... So basically, if you've got cards that you have to errata to try and make everything more synonymous, which is what they do it for. They tend to errata things when either they either print a card that fucks everything up and they have to go back and sort things out, or they make cards that, like the whole the Great Dinosaur washing of cards. Like, if you've got... a way to make everything feel more like it's collective, fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
When you have decisions that make you flip-flop back between things, clearly something isn't going right.
Yeah.
And if you've already got Jackal cards that you errata to be hounds, and then because you've made a Jackal type, you errata them back again, the whole point is if you've already got hounds that encompass whether you're an actual dog, like Mowu, for example, is a dog. You could have just given him dog.
Isamaru.
Or Isamaru, you could have... I mean, he is literally Hound of Condor. But if you could have made Mowu a dog, and you would have put a dog creature type, and it would have been fine, and no one would have been too angry, apart from me, because Hound's already a creature type. The fact that you had you made the Kenra, when they look, some of them look quite similar to some of the Anok, and you already had the Hound type, and you did it for them very, very recently. Why, when you've got 0 Jackal support as a creature type, did you feel the need to diversify? I get the whole point of Anubis and that Jackals in Egyptian culture were a very different
So
type
again,
of
this
dog.
is what we're saying. So the fact that Jackals and Jackal-headed like creatures within the context of this Egyptian flavour set, they had the weight behind them that the design team thought, oh no, we'll make them Jackals. Then. And because they had other Jackals in Magic that they've already errated. They can
But the annoying thing is, though, that if you've already got Hounds and you're still supporting Hounds, then why not make... So why, if you've got a pool of 50 and you've got 10 cards, why not add the 10 to the 50 instead of taking 5 from the 50 and making a pile of 45 and 50?
Yeah, no, I guess. Well, this is what they did
Why
with
split the difference?
Nagas.
Yeah,
right?
this is funny because this is what essentially leads into the Naga argument of... There are only... Look, funny enough, I thought there were going to be more. Looking at it, there are only a few examples of where the creature type isn't following the trend of the thing it is.
Sure.
You know, like, so most of them, like, Aloxin are elephants, and Leonin are cats, and Avon are birds, and Rox are rhinos, and Azumi are rats. That kind of thing. If Viashino aren't lizards, that's what it feels weird. 'Cause it's like, well, there's 3 ones that aren't the thing that they're going to be. And the annoying thing about Jackal is you already had a creature type that you already had anthropomorphized and put some brevity behind, and it already had extra creature typing behind it the same way that lizards do. Why make a whole separate one?
Sure, I suppose so. I mean, if you were to look at, say if Hounds were more supported, and the Kenra in this kind of hypothetical situation were Hound creature types, would you build a deck which had both the Einok of Tarkir and the Jackals of Amonkhet? Would that look right to you?
See, for me, I guess the point, and this is where the flavour versus function things, mechanically, I feel like the thing that would affect certain dog people should affect all dog people, so mechanically it would work.
Sure.
In the same way that you would, if you had... The annoying thing about tokens is that you have 10 1/1 soldier tokens, unless you're really cool and went out and got all the different soldier tokens. Kudos to you, by the way. You're probably going to have 10 of the exact same thing. Now, you're telling me that you've got 10 Bryans, 10 white 35-year-old man Bryans, that's your army. Good, nice diversity. That seems weirder to me than having 8 different creatures that all have ragtag.
If you were a planeswalker with a library of hound people and they were all Kenras as opposed to Inox, that'd be weird.
Weirder than having all different hound people from
No,
different...
I agree. So so Jackals are a weird one where, again, this is kind of showing the kind of thought process of a lot of the design teams where flavour, and we're a flavour podcast, we love it, but the flavour actually gets in the way of a larger scope.
And
of
why
what
didn't they just go Kenra
here.
If they were going to make their own creature type?
They gave it their own tribal name.
Yeah, why didn't they just give them their own tribal name and go Kenra like Naga? You know, which were also in the same set.
Well, now, right.
Again.
We've got one more stage before we get onto Naga,
okay.
and I'll slightly correct you on what you just said, but we'll get there.
Okay,
to lead into it, I think it'd be very remiss of us to not talk about the set which originally had snake people in it.
The Kamigawa.
Which is Kamigawa. Kamigawa had lots of animal people. It was a set full of anthropomorphized tribes.
Yeah. The only colour that didn't was red.
The only colour that
had
didn't.
Aki, which were already goblins.
Which are Aki, which are goblins. And which are goblins, which are the Oni. Yeah, exactly. So you had the Nezumi, which were the rat folk.
Yep.
The Kitsune, which are the fox folk. You had the moon folk, which were the rabbit folk. Although very loose, but still
and they had ears,
rabbits.
but they weren't. Yeah, they weren't. It wasn't as close.
They weren't bestial.
To be fair, the Orochi, who were snakes.
Sure, and the Orochi, which were the snake people.
Had 4 arms.
Which had 4 arms. But they all had their own quirks, right? So, like, the Nezumi were the most of their animal type, I think.
They looked very close.
They looked like the rats. But then in fantasy, like other IPs, like Warhammer, for example, you have rat folk in that. So I think it's quite recognisable. You have the Kitsune. So Nezumi is literally the Japanese word for rat. Kitsune is literally the Japanese word for fox.
Yeah.
And the Kitsune in Japanese folklore, foxes have kind of supernatural properties.
Yeah, the idea is that you would... I mean, if you ever find my Facebook, my middle name is Kitsune on there because I have a lot of affinity with foxes.
Yeah.
Shock. And the idea is that they were like almost like succubuses, of where they would drain the essence of their spouses. They were very fickle, as foxes are known to be.
Sure.
So, yeah.
But all of these, other than the moonfolk, all of these creature things, so the Nezumi and the Kitsune have creature type rat and fox.
Yeah.
They're not their own thing, which actually I was really surprised at. Because in my mind, for whatever reason, when it came to Kamigawa, outside of playing it, just looking at it in a bubble, Nezumi in my head sounds like a clan name. Yeah. So to have the clan of Nezumi, who are the rat people with rat subtype, is fine. Kitsune sounds like a creature type.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? And I guess they are distinct. I mean, the thing is, there aren't that many foxes.
No, but there are foxes.
There are foxes in the game. There aren't that many of them. So again, like, I guess you didn't need to make them fox folk. The only thing that didn't... The weird outlier in all of these is because the Orochi are snakes, the Nezumi are rats, the Kitsune are foxes, is that the moonfolk... I can't remember what they're called off the top. Soratami, there we go.
Soratami.
The Soratami are moonfolk. They're not
sure.
rabbit.
So,
and I guess the point is that they don't look like rabbits enough. And obviously rabbits and rats are quite similar. If they did go super anthropomorphized, it might look a bit too similar.
Yeah, so Tamio, the planeswalker, her species is moonfolk.
Yeah.
And but the race of people she belongs to as a moonfolk are the Soratami.
Technically, that's a collective. It's been thousands of years.
Well, I mean, that's the only
Kamigawa,
collective that we
so
kind
we don't
of know
necessarily
about,
know.
right?
The only reason we know they kind of are still around because Cassetto is the Orochi Ascendant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we still know the Orochi have a title in modern Kamigawa because he's from modern Kamigawa.
Sure.
When the set was like
he's also a Snake Lord Commander as well.
Yeah, which is quite cool. But yeah, obviously snakes.
Sure.
But anyway, so since we're beating around the bush and we're kind of not addressing the elephant in the room, it's funny that these were very specifically anthropomorphized, very similar to Leonin, very similar to Loxodon, where they went, nah, screw it, make them the animal
the animal they are. And obviously you had the snake people. Yes. The Orochi are the snake folk. So, people liked the Orochi. You get some of the most iconic cards in Magic, at least for EDH, come from the Orochi, things like Sakura Tribe Elder and whatnot. So when they came to Tarkir, and we're here. We're finally here.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Nagas.
I know.
When we came up to Tarkir, people went, cool, you're bringing the snake folk back. They made the decision to have, instead of it being snake in the creature type, for the Naga, who are the race of snake folk on Tarkir, to have the creature type Naga.
Yeah.
Which completely divorced them as a tribe from the Orochi on Kamigawa.
I mean, obviously they do look very different in terms of like...
They do, yeah. So the
Orochi didn't have tails, they had normal legs.
The Orochi had legs and 4 arms.
They were essentially reptilian. They were the clearest example of where they've evolved from a species and then have evolved into something else.
Whereas the Nagas...
How they grew 4 arms.
The Nagas are... They're all... Yeah, they have a snake body with arms at the kind of top.
2 arms.
2 arms and then like a snake head.
Similar to how the Gorgons look in Theros, where they still have tails.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about Gorgons, actually.
Not the Gorgons from Ravnica, which have normal legs. The Gorgons in Theros have regular snaky
because that's how they are portrayed in Greek myth.
Mythology. Yeah, exactly.
So the Naga, you said earlier on that Naga was the tribal name for the snakes on Tarkir, and that seemed like, why did they not have that as a subtype? But actually Naga is a Sanskrit word from the South and Southeastern traditions. So Naga is and Nagas are described as being sort of snake people. So,
because I literally, off the back of you saying, I've literally looked up Naga in front of me. Yeah, I guess they do. The name does have real world.
So it has real world references, much like the Rakshasa.
That's my counter argument.
But the Rakshasa, as we said earlier,
went to cat demons. Yeah. So why did they go cat demon for Rakshasa, which already had
a
base in Hinduism, and then take a similar name like Naga, which had basis in Hinduism, and then not make them snake people?
Yeah, it makes no sense. This is what's so frustrating. Yeah. You can see the reason we've gone through all of these different creature typings is because we can see at every instance the thought process within the bubble of a set, or within the idea of like, well, this wouldn't work with sets previous, of each design team going, these are the ideas that we've had, this is how we've done it, and for the most part it works. Yes, they've had to do some janky erasering here and there, but 80% of the time they've got it bang on. Yeah. This is so egregiously not the correct way to go. Again, I'm going to quote Mark Rosewater again from his Blogger Talk, where he got asked this question. He said, again, he would prefer snakes. But apparently, and this comes from a lot of articles I've read and a lot of different blog posts, where there seemed to be pretty much a 50-50 split in the design team for both Tarkir and Amonkhet, where Nagas were the creature typing, where people on the design team were like, no, let's make them snakes. No, they're Nagas. And even more so for Amonkhet, when both creature types were already established at that point. Which way do you go?
Yeah.
Do you just have it so that the Tarkir snake people are on their own, and then...
Or do you just screw it, you made a mistake, errata them all? All Nagas are also snakes.
Yeah, true, but then...
They can still do that at some point in the future if they feel like they need to.
Yeah, but it doesn't work the same way, say, that werewolves work, where they've already had inbuilt synergies with both wolves and werewolves together.
Yeah.
Then you're cutting off the other end of the scale when it comes to snakes, where half of the great snakes in Magic the Gathering aren't snake folk.
Yeah,
they are snakes.
Do you then make cards that have snake tribal affinity and they go snakes or Naga?
Well, yeah, but that would be so messy, right?
Exactly.
That'd be so messy.
And that's what I mean. That's why the wolf-werewolf thing annoys me, because it creates... It's not clean, and this is where this is kind of a bit annoying. Like we can touch on a couple of things like merfolk being fish. Again, like it's not that big a deal, and it wouldn't be clean to then errata them to be fish.
Sure.
And we're still early enough in it's like little things like noggles. The noggles from Eventide weren't donkeys; they were noggles.
Sure.
Which is weird because there's only 3 donkeys that I know of in Magic. Most of them, I think, again from Unhinged. So why not make them donkeys? In the same way, why would you not make tree folk plants? Again, you want to create diversity. I get that, cool. When you've only got one set, and you already got a lot of kickback about it, are you telling me that when they look through their all their mail and went, oh, actually, there's a 7-year-old from Dakota that actually really he's really happy that we represented Naga in our game. Should we just carry on? Doing it? Ignore the hundreds of other people.
Yeah.
No, screw that. They don't matter. Yeah. So that's.
But the thing is that they could have also, like they did with the Roxasa, and I kind of said that this was wrong because it's an actual word and not a tribal name. But yeah, you're right. They could have just had, like they have done for every other creature type, have Naga Warrior, Naga Berserker, creature type Cat Warrior, Cat Snake Warrior. Oh, Cat Warrior, Snake Warrior, Snake Berserker.
Exactly.
It would be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
This is just so egregious to me, and I really don't know why they made the same mistake for Amonkhet.
Maybe Rakshasa's too difficult a word to put into a creature type, but then at the same time, is it really? Because you're putting it in the name of the card anyway.
Yeah, you have to say it more times.
I mean, yes, Cat Demon takes up less space than Rakshasa, and Naga's smaller, but like a small weapon. And I'm trying to think of some weird corner case outline. Like I get why diversity
I just think
is
they
good.
thought the flavour was going to be on point.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to get a much better reaction. In my head, the only thing I can think of is that they thought, well, for worlds which have a very set tradition of snake people, we need to acknowledge it somehow.
Yeah,
but then they didn't do it for other things.
And that's the thing. But the fact they haven't done it for other ones like Leonin or for anything else,
fact
that's
that
what makes it feel weirder.
The Avon on Amonkhet, because Amonkhet has Avon, the fact that they're still birds is
the fact
bonkers.
that in each set that Naga are in, they have almost a very similar trend that goes in the opposite direction within the same set.
Yeah.
So they went for Cat Demon with the Rakshasa in the original Tarkir, and then they went with birds rather than creating their own creature type for Amonkhet. So yeah, it's one of those things of I get why they're doing it, but at the same time, it's just a bit annoying, especially when the Naga look more like snakes than the Orochi did.
Yeah,
I know they're not going to go back and go, well, all the Orochi are now Nagas and all these Nagas are now snakes, but the only thing I can think of is that at some point in the future, they might just go, okay, fair enough, all Nagas are also snakes. And that's an easy way to make that work.
Yep.
Because then, instead of having to, unless they go deep on some Naga support, which I don't think they ever will in terms of a tribe, it's quite easy at some point for them to go, hey, let's just actually make them all snakes.
So this is why I've been so sort of angry about it.
They might do with Jackals as well.
Yeah.
If they do it with Jackals, that'd be really helpful as well.
This is why I've been so angry in previous episodes, because I've had real world conversations with people outside of like us two, like, you know, talking on a podcast about it. And a lot of people go who aren't as fussed or as obviously angry about it as I am, which to me is crazy. Why wouldn't you be angry about it? Is that they go, well, diversity breeds creativity, and we would rather if the choice was we have, say, 100 creature types that we have to crowbar everything else into, or we have 259 plus creature types that
can spread out.
And some things might get caught in the crossfire. We'd rather that. And I think that's completely valid. That is 100%. That is the answer which calms me down when the red mist descends.
Yeah.
But
you don't want to pigeonhole everything down. You want to spread out as that big. Again, it's that big. But sometimes
this is just so weird.
It does feel very strange.
No one's building a Jackal deck or a Hound deck. Yeah, everyone wants a Snake deck.
Yeah, like I can have my own personal reasons why the Werewolf thing doesn't sit, but then you can justify back the other direction. I can be like, actually, applicates me quite nicely. Sure. Good job. These are two that I just sit and dig my heels in and go, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me. Yeah. And obviously, if you're playing at home, you can do the whole, but I'm going to do it anyway, and as long as my play group's fine with it, that's fine.
Oh, sure, if you're playing EDH,
yeah. But it's like when you're playing, it's like playing with cards. I played with a proxied Guy's Cradle in a couple of decks, and as much as I as much, it's like £400, so I'm not buying one.
Yeah.
As it still feels a little bit weird because you're not playing with that.
It doesn't get the satisfaction.
No, and in the same way, if you went, yeah, but we'll just play as all Nagas, you still technically haven't got any official support for your opinion. So it kind of feels like you're going it alone and being a bit of a maverick about it, which is fine. I'm just surprised, if anything, and I'm not actually angry. I'm just surprised that they didn't go the way of, when we've already got generic subtype or generic creature types for anthropomorphized races, why they didn't just continue the trend when it is only a few outliers. It's literally just Viashino, Naga, and Kenra that don't fall into it, and they're my three most, like, obviously there may be issues because they don't fall into the common trope. So the reason I was
trying to keep note of when these things first appeared as well, for the most part, is the ones that seem to have their own creature type do tend to be an earlier Magic. If you noticed, before maybe they thought tribal synergies were a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've kind of covered that. I think we've laid out our points quite well. Yeah. I wasn't ever going to start this podcast episode with having an answer in mind or a goal in mind, but these are the reasons. This is why it gets frustrating, and this is why sometimes I think it's okay to be like, no, creature types are plenty, do what you want. Yeah, fine, centaurs are centaurs, and then get upset about things like Jackals and Nagas.
Yeah.
I will ask you one thing.
Yeah.
If tomorrow, Mark Rosewater, because he's the god of Magic the Gathering, apparently.
He controls everything.
He controls every aspect of it. If he was to come up to you and say, Nathan Cancel, we're going to errata snakes / Nagas one way or the other, and you could do whatever you want, and then every card that said snakes get +1/+1 or whatever else, it all worked and it was all fine. Yeah. Knowing what you know about other creature types, about other traditions in Magic for naming creature types, which way would you go?
Well, I'd go snakes, obviously. But, I mean, my main argument is what's there more of.
I kind of wanted you to build up some more suspense.
I know, I mean, obviously, yeah, but I feel like we've just spent an hour talking very obviously in which direction our opinion's going to go.
Cool.
I would also be really happy that he knew my name, like my full name, and came directly up to me.
We've met him.
Yeah, and I don't think you remember my name.
Well, no, we were one of 1,000 nerds in a queue at Magic Fest London going, find my playmat.
But, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think he knew I did it. But.
No. By the way, he's great at Magic Fest.
He's really, really great.
Yeah, he was sat behind this table that was like coming right up to like his collarbone.
It was giant, and he'd drape himself over it.
Yeah, because we're stood on the ground. Position. The table's already on a platform, and he stood on the platform on the table. So to get into selfies with people, he threw his 5'6", 5'7" body over the top of the table to get into people's selfies.
So he looks so.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he knew your name, Nathan. I think he's got all of us on a list, and he checks it twice.
Like Santa Claus. He is. He's Magic Santa Claus. Fantastic.
Excellent.
Well, derail at the end there. Fantastic. But yeah, the idea is that mostly we're just trying to figure out thought processes, also kind of working out our own thought process, but also kind of the thought process that are going on behind the closed doors that dictate our game. And yeah, mostly it's just when things buck a trend, like Magic tends to be quite good at holding true to form. It will literally make sets like the unsets to be converse to typicality. So it's strange when we don't get typicality in quite obvious examples. And that's, I mean, the three things that I have a problem with are the three ones that kind of are outliers. And no, I don't, it's not just I want conformity. It's just because Magic is a synergistic game, it just doesn't make sense to my brain for things not to conform sometimes when they have the option to.
Sure. All right, guys, I think we're going to cap it off there. I think we made ourselves perfectly clear, or unclear as the case may be. Yeah. What creature types would you want to see have more support on Magic? We've already done a shout out on Twitter about this. Lots of people want hounds, which is why we think it's ironic that, there are hounds out there. They're just not called hounds. So let us know on Twitter, or what creature types do you think is ridiculous that they have a creature type, but they should be part of something else. What creature types do you know of that you think it's just insane that they have that creature type? Like there are eyes in Magic as a creature type. That's crazy. Hit us up on Twitter, guys. It's at Magic the Flavouring. You can find me at Andy Manface.
At the Fox in the Moon.
Wouldn't it be better if it was at Kitsune in the Moon?
I've got many, many, many aliases across multiple forms of the internet, and Kitsune does fit into quite a few of them. So.
Emails go to mtflavouring@gmail.com. Guys, thank you so much for listening. This episode's been coming for a long time, I think, and it will probably still get debated in further episodes
we'll
as well.
Back to this. We've got other creatures to talk about.
Oh yeah, sure. Like doing research for this, things like zombies came up, things like vampires came up.
The undead great debate might be something we talk about.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
How afflictions and certain things work and why certain, like why werewolves keep humans but vampires
Sure.
don't keep their races.
Another one to look out for as well is that we will be doing an episode on goblins, because goblins are so diverse that some of the goblins in the multiverse are so far removed from other ones. Can they even really be called the same creature?
Exactly.
Yeah, so look out for that. That's going to be really exciting. As always, guys, please hit us up on social media. Share this podcast with a friend as well. If you have a friend that's not a Vorthos and you're getting sick and tired of them talking about the MPL or whatever the hell's going on, turn them on to being a Vorthos.
Format.
Yeah. Oh, you want to get something out of this game rather than just whinging about fake creature types. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Wasting our afternoons away.
Which is what we're all doing right now. So thank you for listening for the past hour and 15 minutes. Guys, as ever, like, share, subscribe, comment, sign up, whatever the hell you want to do. This has been Magic the Flavouring.
See you soon.